So, back in my Black Clover video, I mentioned that one of the other shows I checked out while I was on break was Jujutsu Kaisen, and I wanted to come on here and give a little update on what's been going on, because a lot's changed since that video. Since then, I haven't just rewatched Jujutsu Kaisen a few times, but I got so deep into the story, I'm actually on my 10th reread of the manga, and there's a good reason for that. Simply put, Jujutsu Kaisen is amazing. Actually, I'll even go a step further and say that not only is Jujutsu Kaisen the best shonen out right now, yes, it's better than My Hero Academia, it's better than Black Clover, both series that I love and have made videos on, which you can check out right over here. But I think Jujutsu Kaisen is just head and shoulders above the others as a modern masterpiece in progress, and by the time it's finished, it'll be finally remembered as one of the greatest mangas ever written. Something about this story just oozes greatness, and let me tell you, when I was watching it, I felt the same sensation as when I first watched Hunter x Hunter, and I say that knowing full well that to some people, that might come off as a bit of a controversial statement, but hear me out. The world building, characters, powers, and storyline of Jujutsu Kaisen are just sublime. You can feel the amount of thought and effort that Gege Akutami put into constructing every aspect of this world. In fact, it was actually this feeling that made me want to make this video in the first place, and the similarities don't stop there. Everything from the pacing of the story to the characters, their motivations, their powers. Oh my god, their powers, bro. I just want to get this off my chest real quick, but like, Hunter x Hunter's power system is a work of art all on its own. I can make an entire video on Nen and why it's absolutely the best power system in any anime. And in fact, I actually have an entire video planned about power systems in anime and why they're so important. So please comment, like, and subscribe if you want to see that. In fact, I'm actually working on a few more Jujutsu Kaisen videos, and I'm also writing the full Bakugo analysis video I promised in my What Exactly is the Point of Bakugo Anymore video, which you can check out right over here. So I set the like goal for that video at 38 likes, and you guys just absolutely crushed it. I mean, I'm just blown away. Thank you guys so much for the support. So if this video gets 50 likes, I'll also make a video about Jujutsu Kaisen's power system and why that's also genius. But I want to go a step further. Ladies and gentlemen, if this video gets 100 likes, yes, you heard me right, 100 likes, I will make a video analyzing one of my absolute favorite characters in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, Toji Zenin, because I have a lot to say about Toji. So to recap, 50 likes for the power system video and 100 for the Toji analysis. Anyway, back to the video. So I want to start off by talking about the hero roles in both stories, and I think the most obvious similarities between the two mangas actually begin with their portrayal of the heroic jobs. And what I mean by that is, typically in shonen anime, the protagonists are part of some kind of official organization that's been approved by their societies. For example, Magic Knights in Black Clover, Wizards in Fairy Tail, Pro Heroes in My Hero Academia, and so on. Typically, these roles embody some kind of simple right versus wrong ideal. In My Hero Academia, for instance, a pro hero is a person in charge of saving lives and fighting crime, putting them squarely in the good category. However, this is not the case in Jujutsu Kaisen, and it is especially not the case in Hunter x Hunter. See, in Hunter x Hunter, the main job is hunter, obviously, but it's not a job that is inherently good or evil. Hunters can come in all shapes and sizes, and it covers a wide array of jobs within the spectrum. The job description is basically whatever the person decides to do with their license. If you're a hunter, the options for what you can do with that title are basically infinite. Hell, most people just take the hunter exam so they can either get away with certain crimes or just sell the license for money and just retire off that. In Hunter x Hunter, pro hunters aren't good guys. They're mercenaries with side hustles. In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, sorcerers are not heroes or villains either. They're exterminators. Their mission isn't to save lives, it's to exorcise cursed spirits, and that's it. It's a fascinating dynamic that makes it way more touching when a sorcerer does try to save someone, because they don't have to, and know that if they don't, there's not going to be any consequences. So these positions highlight a fantastic moral ambiguity about each series as a whole. For Hunter x Hunter, it shows how versatile being a hunter is, as well as how respected it is within the means of the society. Hunters could sell their licenses and retire off the money alone, showing that there's not only a demand for hunters, but also just their licenses. As for the profession of hunter, it's also gotten to a point where hunters are just all over the world. From forests to kitchens to pro fighting to security guards, there's no limit to what being a hunter can enable somebody to do. In Jujutsu Kaisen, the moral ambiguity comes from the fact that exorcising a cursed spirit takes an absolute priority in the world, more than protecting human life. The jobs of hunter and sorcerer share one common theme, and that is brutality. They show the audience that these worlds are cold, uncaring and unforgiving to the people living in them. And that is just from being the good guys in the story. Now let's talk about what these stories have to say when it comes to their villains. So this is by far going to be the biggest part of the video, but there's a lot of nuance here. So I want to break down the villains into a few categories. The first being your basic henchman level threats. Here you have your basic foot soldiers, back alley thugs, basically the baseline threat for the characters for the entire series. Now the next level is the middle management level. Now these guys are the first mini bosses that the main characters face on their own, and it usually results in a very narrow win to teach the protagonists that the henchman they barely managed to beat was just another henchman, and the final boss, who's behind it all, is just on a whole other level. So if they can't even beat this lackey, what hope do they have of fighting the guy at the top? Now, next up we have underbosses. Now these are by far my favorite category, because guys on this level are usually the ones that get the most backstory, most fleshed out abilities, and eventually absolutely folded by the main antagonist or the protagonist, but on a very rare but welcome occasion, both. I love these guys so much, dude. Underbosses are where it's all at, bro. Don't at me. Anyway, the final category of villain is our main antagonists, the final bosses, the head honcho, the guy or girl that's behind everything. Now, these characters are typically the most powerful or important in the story, and it's usually after these guys have been stopped that the story finally concludes. And there you have it. That's all the different villain levels in anime. Now that we've got the basic categories settled, let's talk about the specific bad guys in Jujutsu Kaisen and Hunter x Hunter and see how they stack up against each other. So before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that yes, I do understand that when it comes to villains in both shows, on a broad level, Jujutsu Kaisen has what I'd call more traditionally evil villains, and the henchman level threats in this case would be grade 1 cursed spirits, and according to the show's philosophy, these curses can be taken out by a baseball bat. But here's the thing, cursed spirits are, well, bad? By their very nature, these things kill, torture, and deceive human beings from the moment they're born to the moment a sorcerer eventually comes and exorcises them. Comparing the chimera ants to cursed spirits would be like comparing a serial killer to a butcher. Sure, there are similarities in their methods, but their motivations are night and day. First of all, when I talk about chimera ants for this section, I'm mostly talking about the basic soldier ants that worked under the squad captains. These ants were super primitive, and they were just used to kill and bring back food for the queen. For these chimera ants, killing and eating humans isn't just a part of their diet, but it's more so a huge part of their reproduction and evolution cycles. In the same way that even after having been mixed with so many species, the chimera ants still retain their basic ant instincts and hierarchies. Sure, in some ants it's stronger than others, but the point is fundamentally the same. For chimera ants, eating humans is just a part of their nature. It's their biology. It's how they survive as a species. Cursed spirits, on the other hand, just kill, eat, and hurt humans for their own pleasure, because that's in their nature. So moving on to the next level in this villain hierarchy, we have the middle management villains. As I said before, the villains on this level would be considered like mini bosses the main characters face typically at the beginning of the story. Now, I gave this a lot of thought, and I think a good example of a middle management type in Hunter x Hunter would be someone like the guys from the Heaven's Arena. Hear me out. These guys really weren't all that strong in the grand scheme of things, but the advantage they had over Gon and Killua was that they fought the boys before they were able to use Nen properly. And I think a great example of this is when Gon was fighting the top guy and had his arm break during the match. It really shows just how even a weak Nen user is so much stronger than somebody who isn't using Nen at all. The Jujutsu Kaisen villain that I think best matches this story beat is actually the first special grade cursed spirit the main trio fights. And if you think Gon breaking his arms was a hardcore first step into the world of Nen, then Yuji losing his whole hand is on another level of scary, bro. Talk about sobering experiences in anime. Nothing had broken Yuji's resolve in the story so far, up until he was faced with the possibility of actually dying. And you just see this dude like handless and breaking down over not wanting to die, finally understanding that Jujutsu sorcery is not a game, despite the fact that up until now these guys had taken forms of these like hideous grotesque monsters, and he was just like, nah, fine, I got this. And then the second one takes his arm off, he's like, oh no, I don't want to go. Awesome writing on Gege Akutami's part. So I think as far as mini bosses are concerned, these two really got the main characters and the audience to understand just how high the stakes are and just how weak the characters are in comparison at that stage in their lives. Alright, so in our second to last category, we have our straight up underbosses. And I think as far as this category goes, it's pretty much the easiest one. For this one, we have the Royal Guards from Hunter x Hunter. Proof, Yuppie, and Pita were just stellar characters individually, but it was through their relationship with the king and the heroes that really had them evolve as characters. Literally, sometimes in their fights over the course of a 20-minute period, these ants, these monsters, were just evolving, learning, and growing as individuals. On top of that, any one of these guys would have been enough of a threat to challenge Netero, so their fight scenes were just spectacular. Granted, they were basically fighting with one hand tied behind their backs because of Komugi, but still. Now, as for Jujutsu Kaisen, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I think the most comparable contenders for the Royal Guard are the disaster level curses. So initially, I was gonna go with Kenjaku for this category, but I decided against it because I don't really consider him to be on the same level of Sukuna, who is, in my opinion, going to be the final boss of the entire series. I actually have a whole video planned on that topic as well, so if you guys want to see that happen, let's get this video at 65 likes. Yeah, I'm just adding like goals, like the entire video. But anyways, I digress. I think that although Jogo, Dagon, Hanami, and Mahito were developed less than the Royal Guard, they were still great antagonists and phenomenal underbosses for the main characters to face in actual combat. With maybe the exception of Dagon, all the cursed spirits underwent drastic character development in their fights with the protagonists that elevated their mindsets and gave them some form of self-understanding. On top of that, their abilities are also so varied that it's honestly just eye candy watching them fight, especially in the anime. Alright boys, last up we have the final bosses. And I think for Hunter x Hunter, this one's super easy. At the time of this video, the biggest threat so far in the story has been the one, the only, Meruem, the king of the Chimera Ants. I mean, what is there to say about this guy? He is the absolute peak of power in Hunter x Hunter, but more so, it was his character development that just made him truly legendary. Watching him go from essentially an infant to slowly learning and understanding the world, as well as his relationship with Komugi, it puts this guy up in S-class for me. Meruem's character was well written on every level. His power, his intellect, his relationships, and the conclusion of his arc was just a masterpiece in character writing. Look, I understand that Hunter x Hunter has been around for 30 years now, so I get that it has clear advantages when it comes to the time spent developing certain characters, especially large-scale villains like Meruem. But it's like the title of this video says, I think that Jujutsu Kaisen is already a modern masterpiece in progress. So to match that legendary status of Hunter x Hunter's biggest villain, I think that Jujutsu Kaisen answers that call beautifully with Ryomen Sukuna, the king of curses. Make no mistake here, boys, Sukuna is gonna be the final villain in Jujutsu Kaisen. There is no one else on this show, especially on the side of the villains, who is more dangerous. Not Mahito, not the Jujutsu Sorcery higher-ups, not even Kenjaku. So I want to acknowledge that at the time of recording this, so far in the story, Sukuna has been gradually moved into the background at present time because of the culling games, which haven't started yet. But there have been many seeds planted throughout the show as to what his ultimate plan will be, his conversation with Urahami, and whatever he needs Megami Fushiguro for, but just so far, Sukuna is one hell of an amazing character. First off, this guy is hilarious, but stone cold evil, and I love it, especially when it comes to how he treats Yuji. Oh my god, he is the second strongest being in the entire show, trailing only behind Gojo himself, but the gap between Sukuna and Gojo pales into comparison to the gap between everyone else and Sukuna. It's just amazing. I love this guy. So I think it's safe to say that Hunter x Hunter has probably already cemented its place as one of the greatest manga ever written. The depths within its stories, characters, and world building is nothing short of a masterpiece. I have seen very little anime even come close to approaching the insane depth of detail and narrative writing that Hunter x Hunter has achieved, and even compared to most of its sibling shonen like Black Clover and My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen is relatively brand new, having only started publication in 2018, but in that time, after all the anime I have watched so far, including the two I just mentioned earlier, none of them have given me the same spark as Hunter x Hunter. I've honestly loved watching, reading, and dissecting every moment from this story, and I can confidently say that it has become one of my favorite anime of all time. I think, personally, it'll go down in history as one of the greatest mangas ever written. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen videos, let me know by liking, comment, and subscribing. Remember guys, 50 likes and I'll make the Jujutsu Kaisen Power System video, 65 likes in the Sukuna video, and 100 likes for the Toji Zenin video. Link to my Patreon and other socials below. Check out the join button for exclusive perks and content. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye!